It was supposed to be the perfect evening. Soft lights, elegant music, and a private table at one of the city's most exclusive restaurants. Mark, a self-made millionaire, sat there glancing at his watch, irritation building with every passing minute. He'd agreed to this blind date only because his sister insisted he needed to meet someone real, someone outside his business circle. But after 20 minutes, his patience was gone. Then the restaurant doors opened, and his jaw dropped. A woman stumbled in, her clothes splattered with mud, hair tangled, face flushed with embarrassment. Every head turned. Mark's first instinct was to look away. This was his date? She scanned the room nervously until her eyes met his. She waved, cheeks red, and hurried toward him, apologizing before she even reached the table. The maitre d' looked horrified. Mark felt a pang of second-hand embarrassment. He almost stood up to leave until he saw the tears brimming in her eyes. Hey there, before we dive deeper into this story, if you love emotional stories about love, hope, and kindness, make sure to subscribe to Storyverse. Tap that like button, leave a comment below about what kindness means to you, and let's keep spreading positivity together. Now, back to the story. Mark, I'm so sorry, she said breathlessly, clutching her purse. My car broke down in the rain, and when I tried to push it off the road, a truck splashed me. I thought I'd be late, but I didn't want to cancel. Her name was Emily. And despite the mud and chaos, there was something genuine in her voice, something that cut through Mark's initial judgment. He took a slow breath and forced a small smile. It's okay, he said. You made it. She looked stunned, maybe expecting him to walk out. Mark surprised himself too. He'd built his empire by trusting numbers, not feelings. But something about this woman, messy, flustered, real, stirred something he hadn't felt in years. The waiter brought towels so she could clean her hands. Her dress was ruined, her hair damp, but her laugh, soft and nervous, somehow brightened the table. I swear I don't usually look like a swamp monster, she joked, and Mark chuckled despite himself. As they began to talk, Emily's kindness unfolded like a quiet melody. She worked as a teacher, volunteering on weekends at a local shelter. She didn't complain about her car trouble or the bad luck that had turned her evening into a disaster. Instead, she asked about his day, his work, even complimented the restaurant. Her calm humility caught him off guard. Mark realized he'd been living in a bubble, a world where people smiled because they wanted something. Yet Emily, sitting there with dirt on her shoes and kindness in her eyes, didn't want anything from him. At one point, he excused himself and went to the restroom. He stared at his reflection, feeling oddly ashamed. How many people had he dismissed in his life because they didn't look the part? How many chances for connection had he missed? He returned to the table determined to truly listen. The more she spoke, the more he saw her heart. She talked about her students, kids who came to school hungry, kids she'd buy lunch for without ever telling anyone. She spoke about her dream of starting a community library someday, even though her own paycheck barely covered her bills. Mark, a man used to conversations about profits and deals, sat quietly, captivated. Halfway through dinner, Emily laughed at herself again. I bet you're wishing I'd canceled, she said lightly. Mark shook his head. Actually, I'm really glad you didn't. Her eyes widened, then softened with relief. That simple moment, two strangers smiling through awkwardness, changed everything. When dinner ended, Mark insisted on driving her home. Her car was still stuck by the roadside, half covered in mud. Without thinking, he rolled up his sleeves, got out, and helped her push it onto safer ground. Mud splattered on his shoes, soaking into his expensive slacks. Emily gasped. You don't have to, I want to, he said, smiling. Consider it, even. They both burst into laughter under the streetlight, drenched and dirty, but strangely happy. It was the most human Mark had felt in years. Over the next few weeks, they stayed in touch. What began as an awkward blind date slowly turned into friendship, then something deeper. Emily's warmth softened Mark's edges. She didn't care about his wealth or status, only the way he treated people. And for the first time, Mark realized that true kindness wasn't about grand gestures. It was about noticing someone else's struggle and choosing to stand beside them. Mud and all. One Saturday, Mark visited Emily's school. He saw her in action, kneeling beside a little boy struggling to read, patient and encouraging. She bought the kid snacks out of her own pocket and smiled like it was nothing. Watching her, Mark felt a lump in his throat. Later that night, he told her he wanted to help fund her community library dream. She tried to refuse. "Mark, I can't accept that," she said. "You've done enough." But he shook his head. "No. You've shown me what enough really means." Months passed, and the small library opened in a quiet neighborhood filled with donated books, beanbags, and a mural painted by local kids. Emily cried the day they cut the ribbon, and Mark, standing beside her, realized something: all the success in the world meant nothing without kindness. Their story became one of those rare tales that people whisper about, not because of his money, but because of her heart. The millionaire who almost walked away learned that sometimes the most beautiful things in life come disguised in mud and rain. Years later, when they told their story to friends, Mark would laugh and say, "I almost missed the best night of my life because I was too focused on appearances." And Emily would add, "Good thing kindness makes a great first impression." The truth is, we often expect love, friendship, or kindness to arrive perfectly wrapped. But real kindness isn't polished, it's messy, brave, and honest. It shows up late, covered in mud, and still chooses to smile. So if you ever find yourself judging too quickly, take a breath. Look again. Maybe what you see isn't imperfection, maybe it's grace in disguise. Because kindness doesn't just change the people we meet. It changes us, and that night, in the rain and the laughter, Mark discovered something priceless: that the richest hearts belong to those who give, even when life leaves them covered in mud. So let's remember, one small act of kindness can rewrite someone's entire story. Be that reason. Be that light, because sometimes, kindness is the real treasure we've been searching for all along.